I used to believe that the worst thing a woman could lose was her marriage. I was wrong. The worst thing you can lose is your ability to trust the people you love. My name is Olivia Bennett, and for 11 years, I was married to Ryan Mitchell. From the outside, we had the perfect life. A beautiful house in the suburbs. 2 expensive cars. Weekend trips. Dinner parties with successful people. Photographs where Ryan's arm was always around my waist and I was always smiling. Everyone thought I was lucky. Even my best friend, Victoria, used to tell me that. "You have everything, Olivia," she would say. I believed her. Until one Friday evening. Ryan told me he had an important business dinner and would be home late. I wasn't suspicious. He had been working longer hours for months because his company was preparing for a major expansion. So I stayed home. Around 11:30, I received a notification from our shared bank account. A payment had been made at a luxury hotel downtown. The amount was almost $2,000. I stared at my phone. Maybe it was a business expense. Maybe Ryan had taken a client there. I called him. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then, for reasons I still don't understand, I opened my laptop and checked the location connected to our family account. The hotel. I grabbed my coat. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the underground parking garage. Ryan's car was there. My heart started beating faster. I took the elevator to the 7th floor. Room 714. I stood outside the door for almost a minute. Then I heard laughter. A woman's laughter. I knew that voice. My hand began shaking. I opened the door with the spare key I had found in Ryan's office months earlier. And there they were. Ryan. And Victoria. My husband and my best friend. Together. Victoria screamed. Ryan went completely silent. I didn't. I looked at them and said the only thing that came to my mind. "How long?" Neither answered. I looked at Victoria. "How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" She started crying. Ryan stepped toward me. "Olivia, please." I raised my hand. "Don't." I walked out. I expected to feel broken. Instead, I felt strangely calm. On the drive home, one thought kept repeating in my head. They had no idea what I knew. And they had absolutely no idea what I was about to discover. Because the affair wasn't the biggest secret Ryan had been keeping from me. It was only the beginning. I didn't confront Ryan when he came home. He expected screaming. Crying. Questions. Instead, I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. He walked in around 7 in the morning. "Olivia." I looked up. "Good morning." He froze. "You're awake?" I'd been awake for hours. He slowly sat across from me. "Can we talk?" "Of course." He took a deep breath. "What you saw last night wasn't." "Don't lie." He stopped. For the first time in 11 years, I saw fear in his eyes. He admitted the affair. According to him, it had been going on for 6 months. 6 months. While Victoria sat in my house. While she hugged me. While she gave me advice about my marriage. While I told her how much I loved Ryan. She knew everything. I asked Ryan if he loved her. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Then he said something I will never forget. "I was going to leave you." I stared at him. "When?" "Soon." "After the company expansion?" Silence. That was when I realized this wasn't just about an affair. Ryan had been planning his escape. That afternoon, I called Ethan Parker, an attorney I had known for years. "I think my husband is hiding money from me," I told him. The next morning, we met. Ethan listened carefully. Then he said something that changed everything. "Don't confront him yet." Why? Because if he's hiding money, he'll move it. That night, while Ryan was sleeping, I entered his office. I searched through his drawers until I found a folder hidden behind several financial reports. Inside were bank statements. 3 secret accounts. 2 companies. And a private trust. The numbers made my stomach turn. Millions of dollars. Then I found an agreement between Ryan and Victoria. It stated that after our divorce, Victoria would receive part of his company. But there was one problem. Ryan didn't completely own the company. My father had invested in it years ago. And according to the original agreement, I owned controlling interest. Ryan had never told me. He thought I knew nothing about his business. He was wrong. I closed the folder. For the first time that night, I smiled. Ryan thought he was leaving me with nothing. He had no idea he had just given me everything I needed. Ethan confirmed everything. The company was worth far more than Ryan had told me. My father's original investment gave me legal rights Ryan had been hiding. But Ethan warned me not to act too quickly. If you confront him now, he'll move the money. So what do I do? You let him think he has won. So I did. For 3 weeks, I became the perfect wife. I cooked dinner. I smiled. I asked about his day. I even apologized for overreacting about the hotel. Ryan believed me. Victoria did too. One afternoon, she called me. "Olivia, I'm so sorry." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "I understand." She told me she and Ryan had fallen in love. Then she said, "You should let him go." I closed my eyes. My best friend was telling me to give my husband to her. "Maybe you're right," I replied. She sounded relieved. A week later, Ryan filed for divorce. He arrived home with his lawyer and a folder. "I don't want this to become ugly," he said. I looked through the papers. He wanted the house. The cars. Most of our investments. He had prepared everything. He thought I would fight. Instead, I signed. Ryan looked surprised. "You're not going to fight me?" "No." He smiled. I knew that smile. It was the smile of a man who believed he had won. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. Ryan moved into a luxury penthouse. Victoria moved in with him. Everyone congratulated them. Nobody knew what I was doing. I moved into a small apartment and disappeared from social media. Then Ethan called. "Olivia, it's time." "For what?" "To take back what belongs to you." The next morning, I walked into Mitchell Industries. Ryan was in a meeting when I entered. He stared at me. "Olivia?" I placed a folder on the table. "I believe you forgot something." He opened it. His face went pale. "My father's original investment agreement," I said. Ryan looked at his lawyer. Then back at me. "You don't own this company." I smiled. "Actually, Ryan." I leaned toward him. "I own the controlling interest." His smile disappeared. And for the first time, he realized that the woman he had betrayed was no longer the woman he thought he knew. Ryan called me that evening. He was furious. "You've been planning this?" "No." "Then why didn't you tell me you owned the shares?" "Because you never asked." He slammed the phone down. The next morning, Ryan's lawyer contacted Ethan. They offered me money. A lot of money. I refused. Then they doubled the offer. I refused again. Finally, Ryan called me himself. "Olivia, what do you want?" I thought about the hotel. The lies. Victoria. The humiliation. But revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted the truth. I want an audit. There was silence. Of what? Everything. Ryan immediately refused. That told me enough. Ethan filed the necessary legal requests. Within days, financial investigators began examining Mitchell Industries. They discovered suspicious transfers. Money had been moved from the company into private accounts. Some of those accounts belonged to Victoria. Ryan claimed the payments were legitimate consulting fees. They weren't. But then investigators discovered something even worse. The money wasn't just being transferred to Victoria. Some of it was being sent to a company registered under a different name. The company belonged to Ryan's father, Richard. I couldn't understand it. Why would Richard be involved? Ethan looked at me seriously. You need to meet him. I don't want to. You should. We met at a quiet restaurant. Richard looked older than I remembered. He sat across from me and sighed. I owe you an explanation. I think you owe me several. He nodded. Then he told me something I never expected. Years ago, before Ryan and I married, Richard had discovered that his son was stealing money from the family business. He confronted him. Ryan promised to stop. He didn't. So Richard secretly created a trust. The trust protected the company's assets from Ryan. My father knew about it. And when my father invested in Mitchell Industries, he added my name to the agreement. I stared at Richard. Why didn't anyone tell me? Your father wanted you to have a normal life. I laughed bitterly. A normal life? Richard looked down. There is something else. He pushed an envelope toward me. Inside was a letter. It was written by my father. I recognized his handwriting immediately. My hands began shaking. The letter was dated 12 years earlier. I read the first line. Olivia, if you're reading this, something has gone very wrong. I stopped breathing. Then I read the next sentence. Never trust Ryan. I looked at Richard. What did my father know? Richard didn't answer. Instead, he whispered. Your father didn't die because of an accident. My entire world went silent. I couldn't speak. My father had died 12 years ago. Everyone had told me it was a heart attack. A tragic accident. Something nobody could have prevented. But Richard was telling me something different. Your father was investigating Ryan, he said. Why? Because he discovered Ryan had been stealing from the company. I stared at the letter again. My father had known. And somehow, he had suspected Ryan might hurt him. Why did he still let me marry Ryan? Richard's eyes filled with regret. Your father believed Ryan had changed. I felt sick. For 12 years, I had believed I lost my father to fate. Now I wondered if I had lost him because of the man I married. Richard gave me another document. It was a report from a private investigator. Ryan had been following my father's financial activities shortly before his death. There were photographs, bank records, phone logs. Then I saw one name. Victoria Hayes. My hands went cold. Victoria knew my father? Richard nodded. She worked for him. That was impossible. Victoria had always told me we met in college. But the report showed she had worked as an assistant in my father's company. And she had left shortly before his death. I called her. She answered immediately. Olivia? Why did you work for my father? Silence. Who told you? I asked you a question. She began crying. I was young. That doesn't answer me. I made mistakes. What did you know about Ryan? She hung up. That night, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing valuable was stolen. Only one thing was missing. The copy of my father's letter. I called the police. Then Ethan. He arrived within an hour. Olivia, he said, you need to leave. Why? Because this isn't a divorce anymore. He showed me a message he had received. It came from an unknown number. Stop digging. I looked at him. What happens if I don't? Ethan stared at me. Then we find out how far they're willing to go. I refused to stop. The next day, I searched through my father's old belongings. Old boxes. Photographs. Business files. Then I found an old cassette tape. My father's voice filled the room. Olivia, if you're hearing this, Ryan has probably betrayed you. I covered my mouth. The recording continued. He isn't the person you think he is. Then came a long silence. And finally, my father's last words. And neither is Victoria. I listened to the recording 3 times. My father's voice kept echoing in my head. Ryan has probably betrayed you. And neither is Victoria. I couldn't understand what he meant. The next morning, I called Ethan. I need you to find everything you can about Victoria. He didn't ask why. By that afternoon, he had a file waiting for me. I opened it carefully. The first page made my heart stop. Victoria Hayes had worked for my father. Not after I met her. Before. She had been his assistant for almost 2 years. But there was something even stranger. She had left the company only 3 weeks before my father's death. I called her. She answered after several rings. Olivia? Why did you work for my father? She was silent. I asked you a question. I didn't want you to find out like this. Then tell me the truth. Victoria started crying. I didn't betray you because I wanted your life. Then why? Because Ryan found me first. I frowned. What does that mean? Ryan knew I had worked for your father. He knew I had information about the company. She told me Ryan had approached her years ago. He wanted documents. Financial records. Anything that could help him gain control of the company. Victoria agreed. At first, she only wanted money. But then Ryan became obsessed with her. Or at least, that's what she believed. He promised me we'd build a life together, she whispered. You knew he was married. I know. You knew I trusted you. I know. Her voice broke. I was selfish. I wanted to hate her. But there was something in her voice that made me listen. Then why are you helping me now? There was a long silence. Because I found out what Ryan really did. What did he do? He didn't just steal from your company. Victoria told me that Ryan had been moving money through secret accounts for years. But the money wasn't being used for business. It was being used to pay someone. Who? I don't know. Victoria. I swear I don't know. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Ryan was terrified of your father. Why? Because your father knew what happened 12 years ago. I gripped the phone. What happened? I don't know. Then what do you know? Victoria began crying. I know Ryan wasn't alone that night. The call suddenly ended. I tried calling her again. No answer. Then my phone received a message. A photograph. It showed my father standing beside a car. He was alive. The date on the photograph was 3 days after the accident that supposedly killed him. My hands began shaking. I immediately called Ethan. Where did you get that? I didn't, I said. I sent him the photograph. There was silence. Then Ethan said, Olivia, your father may not have died 12 years ago. I stared at the picture. My entire life had been built on a lie. But the biggest question was still unanswered. If my father was alive, where had he been all these years? I barely slept that night. The photograph of my father sat on my kitchen table. I kept staring at it, hoping I had somehow misunderstood it. But the date was clear. 3 days after his supposed death. My father was alive. Ethan spent the entire morning checking old records. There are no hospital records after the accident, he said. What about the death certificate? It exists. Then how? I don't know. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Victoria. Her voice was barely a whisper. Olivia, you need to listen carefully. Where are you? I can't tell you. What happened? I found something in Ryan's office. What? A recording. My heart started racing. What kind of recording? Your father. I stood up. Send it to me. I can't. Ryan will know. Then where can we meet? She gave me an address. An abandoned office building across town. I drove there immediately. Victoria was waiting inside. She looked terrified. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. Show me the recording. She handed me a small flash drive. I copied it before Ryan found me. I put it into my laptop. A recording began. My father's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, Ryan has probably already made his move. I looked at Victoria. She was crying. The recording continued. Ryan believes he can take control of my company. He believes Olivia knows nothing. There was a pause. Then my father's voice became quieter. But there is something he doesn't know. I leaned closer to the screen. I have already transferred controlling ownership to Olivia. My heart stopped. That explained everything. The company. The hidden documents. Ryan's desperation. But then another voice appeared. Ryan. You're going to regret this. My father's voice answered calmly. If anything happens to me, Olivia gets everything. The recording ended. I looked at Victoria. What happened next? She shook her head. I don't know. Then the door behind us opened. We both froze. Ryan stood there. He looked at Victoria. Then at me. You should have stayed out of this, Olivia. My heart pounded. You're under investigation. He smiled. You think that matters? Ethan suddenly called my phone. I answered. Olivia, where are you? Before I could respond, Ryan grabbed the phone from my hand and threw it across the room. Victoria screamed. Ryan stepped toward us. But then sirens sounded outside. His expression changed. Police officers rushed through the doors. Ryan tried to escape. They caught him before he reached the exit. As they put handcuffs on him, he looked directly at me. You still don't know the truth. I stared at him. What truth? He smiled. The man you think is dead. Then the police took him away. I stood there frozen. My father could still be alive. And for the first time, I knew exactly where I had to go. Richard gave me an address. A small house several hours outside the city. He refused to tell me anything else. I drove there alone. The entire way, I kept thinking about one question. Could my father really be alive? When I finally arrived, I sat in the car for almost 10 minutes. Then I walked to the front door. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. The door slowly opened. And there he was. My father. James Bennett. Older. Thinner. But alive. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then he whispered my name. Olivia. I started crying. Dad? He pulled me into his arms. I couldn't stop shaking. You're alive. I know. Why did you let me believe you were dead? He looked away. Because I had no choice. You always had a choice. My voice broke. You let me mourn you for 12 years. I was trying to protect you. From Ryan? He nodded. Ryan wasn't working alone. I froze. Who else? My father looked toward the window. Someone much closer to you. Before I could ask another question, I heard a car outside. My father immediately became nervous. You need to leave. Why? Because they found me. Who? He didn't answer. The front door suddenly opened. I turned around. Victoria was standing there. My heart stopped. Victoria? She looked at my father. Then at me. I didn't know how else to get you here. I stepped back. You knew he was alive? She nodded. 4 years. I couldn't believe it. You lied to me. I was trying to protect him. Just like everyone else. Victoria began crying. Then my father said something that made me completely silent. Olivia, Victoria wasn't the one who betrayed you. I looked at him. What? Ryan was. I know that. No, my father said. You don't understand. He walked to a desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a folder. He handed it to me. I opened it. There were photographs, documents, emails, and one final contract. I read the name at the bottom. My hands began shaking. It wasn't Ryan. It wasn't Victoria. It was Richard Mitchell. Ryan's father. He had been behind everything. He had arranged the original scheme. He had manipulated Ryan. He had helped hide my father's survival. And he had encouraged Ryan to marry me because he wanted control of my family's assets. I looked at my father. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed proof. I looked down at the documents. Suddenly, everything made sense. The secret accounts. The affair. The divorce. The company. The lies. It had all been part of a plan that started 12 years ago. But there was one final document. A letter addressed to me. I opened it. The handwriting wasn't my father's. It was Ryan's. I read the first sentence. Olivia, if you're reading this, I'm probably already in prison. My heart sank. The letter continued. There is something I never told you. I kept reading. I didn't marry you for your money. I stopped. Then I read the final line. I married you because your father asked me to. I looked up. My father was standing across the room. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. Maybe Ryan hadn't been the villain of my story. Maybe he had been protecting me from someone else. And if that was true, then my revenge had only been the beginning.